They say if you have lush, soft features, perhaps full lips, or you naturally give off a femme fatale, effortless sultriness to you, you may have romantic essence, according to John Kitchener of the Kitchener Essence System. Now, if you are unfamiliar with John Kitchener's system, please check out my Dark Romantic video, which does cover darker styles if you have romantic essence. This video is maybe consider it an add-on, a sequel to that. Today we're going to be focusing on the dark muses as though they were to have romantic essence. Now, the difference between the essence system and my dark muse system is that talking about what the features that you are born with or the features that you have. The dark muses are ethereal entities that you can take inspiration from. If you don't want to take your darker style inspiration from a celebrity or a specific character, but a supernatural being that you can look up to as a muse, as the name insinuates. Let's do a quick recap of what it means and what it may look like if you have romantic essence. Now, I do recommend if you want a more in-depth explanation of romantic essence, please check out my previous video. But when it comes to romantic essence, it is described as lush features. So maybe it's full cheeks, full lips. It may even be cat eyes. It's this idea of a femme fatale, sultry look. It is natural sensuality. Now, according to John Kitchener, reworded by Gabriella Ruda, who I love very much and recommend if you want to get to know more about John Kitchener's system, Kitchener views it as more of a moderate yin and yang placement. Now, yin is softer features, yang is more angular features in terms of these archetype systems. So it is considered moderate in comparison to ingenue and angelic, or which is now renamed as ethereal, being more yin than romantic. Now, Kibbe body type, this video is more of a focus on Kitchener essences, but I think it is still good to be familiar with what David Kibbe describes as romantic. Now, David Kibbe has more of a focus on the body types, but what Kibbe and Kitchener have in common is that romantic is still described as the softer of the other archetypes. He says in his newest book, you need an outline that is soft, allowing the curves to be accommodated for. You can either skim the body or flow outward. Fluidity is important, nothing stiff. Kitchener focuses more on a face and an overall feel, whereas David Kibbe has mentioned many times, and even in his book, his newest book, David Kibbe's The Power of Style, he has talked about how these types have more of a focus of your natural curvature, your body type, and your bone structure. But I do want to say that this video is more of a focus on John Kitchener's essence system. Now, your essence is what you are. These are the features and overall feel that you are born with. I genuinely believe that you can have a different face essence than body type. So I think that's still important to keep in mind. For example, I have been told many times I have a natural romantic face, but I definitely have a soft, natural Kibbe body type. Also keep in mind when I show my other examples, I'm going to be showing people who have a mixture of essences. According to John Kitchener, he has stated that you can have up to all of the essences. You can have one essence. It is a blend and everyone is unique. Personally, I like to focus on the top 3 essences just because everything after 3 tends to kind of be more subdued. With that being said, irregardless of what your essence is or what your Kibbe body type is, you can dress up as vampire, witch, siren, haunted doll, or fairy of your choice. These muses are meant to be, again, a free form of style inspiration. It doesn't matter what features you are born with. Romantic essence is what you are, whereas a dark muse is an entity you want to embody in style and feel. So for example, Gabriette Bachel and Alexa Demi both have romantic in their more prominent essences, but both have featured styles that differ. Gabriette often does showcase vampiric or siren-like styles, and in the specific image here, Alexa Demi showcases a more fairy style. I was very lucky to have been featured in Gabriela Ruda's podcast. And I did say on the podcast, because many people were asking, do the dark muses coincide with the Kitchener essences? Now, in short, they don't. They are different. They are separate. One, Kitchener essences is what you were born with. Dark muses is what you wish to aim for in terms of how you dress, and that is completely up to you, and it is a personal preference, and it can change within time, whereas your essence does not change. Those are your natural features. But I did mention in the podcast that I can see how certain essences do naturally coincide with the dark muses. For example, vampiric styles or vampire as a dark muse is quite structured, is quite maximalist, it is very textured, there are a lot of luxurious details, and I can see how that coincides naturally with dramatic essence. Or the dark muse witch, which is very natural, takes inspiration from nature and deities, and how that can coincide with the Kitchener essence, the naturals. However, I did not make the dark muses to perfectly be a 1-to-1 ratio with the Kitchener essences. I chose 5 because I wanted to keep it simple, and I didn't want any of these styles to overlap too much and be redundant. I wanted them to be unique and stand alone, and to cover a quick basis of dark aesthetics. First and foremost, it is a dark aesthetic archetype system that is meant to help you if you are looking for inspiration, if you prefer darker, spookier, and unsettling styles. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the dark muse vampire. One of the first people that comes to mind when it comes to someone who has some romantic in their facial features and gives off a natural vampiric style is my mutual Nagini. Now, she is often dressed in black and bloody reds, but she often does adorn herself with corsetry and very intricate details that feel very vampiric. She also tends to showcase red lipstick, and I think overall she is a great example of someone who has romantic in her essence blend and has a vampiric style. When it comes to the romantic vampire, vampire at its core is luxurious, structured, saturated colors such as blacks, dark hues, velvety, bloody reds. It is maximalist and it is textured. Think of a vampire as an old being who has collected their riches over time, and that is what is being expressed. Now, why does a vampire style work with romantic essence? The structured and sensuality associated with vampirism or vampire styles complements the nature of a romantic. So I would focus on corsetry, red details, saturated colors, whether they give off a natural sensuality or overall they have this old feel to them of another time. And in the middle image, I do want to note that that is Monica Bellucci, who definitely has romantic essence and played a vampire that is popular and is often referenced in vampire media. I think also the bottom image here to the right is the owner of Blackwood Castle, and she showcases different styles that could be vampiric as well as haunted doll, but she herself has romantic essence, and in this specific picture gives off a vampiric style. I think it's also important to note that when it comes to the dark muses and having romantic essence, there are so many ways that you can go about this. So for example, with the romantic vampire, you can go for a more sultry, very slip, show a lot of skin type of vampire where you're trying to seduce your prey, right? Like a vampire would. Or you can go a more modest route, which is very Victorian, high neck collars, but still corsetry. And it could still all work so beautifully with romantic essence while still giving off a vampiric style. Same thing goes for the dark muse, the witch. Now, when it comes to the witch, I think of my mutual Alexandria, who has a YouTube channel, and her channel feels like a kind of like a Christine McConnell type of show where it's kind of DIY. It's showcased in her beautiful home, but there's something about her features that definitely give off romantic essence. I think she naturally has lush lips, but also the way She poises herself, and also some of the garments that just absolutely glow on her are beautiful romantic styles. Like there's something very naturally sultry and femme fatale about her. And I would say that her style naturally leans between witch and haunted doll, depending on her video. When it comes to the romantic witch, which at its core is shapeless, nature-inspired, natural fibers, it is rugged, it is a little imperfect, and taking inspiration from deities so you may adorn yourself with talismans. It is the dark muses at the end of the day is a look and feel, and to really give off this romantic witch look, you have to look as though you are about to enter a ritual, or you look like you would go home and perform one, or you pray to the moon. Why it works so well with romantics, natural fibers and organic shaped garments can so obviously flow along the curves of a romantic body type, or just complement the look of a romantic face. If you see these billowy sleeves, such as what was shown on My Mutual Alexandria, the image to the left showcases Micheline Pitt's clothing, which is very similar to her style, and I think would complement beautifully on a romantic. I also think of just draped garments in general that have natural inspired colors, such as this beautiful eggplant. I think when you have these sweetheart necklines paired with these very flowy sleeves, it gives off a witch-like look. I also think whimsigoth styles work perfectly with romantics. It is not what's normally recommended, but I still think it complements the quite literally romantic nature. And not to be biased, but I have been told, and I do agree, that romantic is one of my essence blend, and witch is my personal favorite muse that I tend to showcase on a daily basis, and it is the muse that I am naturally drawn to. The dark Siren is another one of my favorites. Now when it comes to Siren looks though, it is a bit more sleek, it is a bit more streamlined, it is sultry as well, but in a more minimal way, just as a Siren would. The reason why I also associated with chrome details and very slick and smooth textures with Siren is because I think about the roughness of the ocean and the sand and what it does to the rocks, the shells. If you think of sea glass, it smooths it out with its roughness, and I feel like this sleek look complements the Siren oh so well, and it is also works with oceanic detail. So when it comes to the Siren, I actually think of my friend at Chelsea. She often wears these very classic pieces but paired with harnesses, and I definitely do think that her essence blend does include romantic in her blend. Now she does wear romantic-esque garments, but I feel like her style is a mix of so many things, but a lot of her designer details very much falls into the Siren. When it comes to the romantic Siren, at its core it is sleek, minimal. You can also take inspiration from oceanic details or colors. It is long silhouettes and subtle sultriness. Why does the Siren look work so well with the romantics? It is, again, another sultry dark muse. It is just a bit more subdued in its sultriness than Vampire, but it is still seductive at its nature, which naturally works with what is described for the romantics. I would aim for silky slips, such as what we see on 90s Runway. I also think of femme fatale inspired pieces, effortless sultry garments, and sleek leathers. Angelina Jolie is a very commonly referenced celebrity who has romantic essence in her blend, and she kind of has that quintessential romantic lips. Naomi Campbell is another muse when it comes to romantic essence, and I think what they both have in common is they were a part of like this darker 90s aesthetic that still mixed high fashion with a bit more of the grungier details that were associated with the 90s, and I think you can really take inspiration for that if you favor the dark muse Siren. Now, when it comes to romantic essence or the romantics in general, I can definitely see how it is to be more so associated with Vampire and Siren, and which is kind of a in between or neutral muse. Like these are what I could see like how people would associate. But the thing is, truly, if you have romantic essence, you can aim for any dark muse of your choice. It is a matter of personal preference and what makes you happiest at the end of the day. So just because you have romantic essence doesn't mean you have to dress like a vampire or a siren. If it is haunted doll, there are definitely ways to go about this. The movie Sucker Punch, I think of Baby Doll. Baby Doll herself definitely has a mix of romantic and ingenue essence, also work in her favor, but that is not a rule. Kat Dennings, who is definitely has romantic somewhere in her essence blend, has showcased some haunted doll garments in the past. When it comes to haunted doll at its core, it is soft colors, it is soft garment details, it is really celebrating these frilly details, doll-like details. It is nostalgic but unsettling in a ghostly specter way. It is reminiscent of another time as well. Again, it is a haunted, possessed doll, but it is also something reminiscent of something ghostly. Now, why does it or why can it work with the romantics? These soft fabrications and traditionally feminine details already are what's recommended on the romantics, so they would complement them naturally. Just like vampiric styles, I would recommend corsetry, but don't forget the frilly details, the ruffles, and having fun, and lace details. Now, when you think of haunted doll, it is this cute but creepy style at its core. So it's mixing these soft pastels with things that are still dark and alternative. I think of Iba necklaces, I think of ruined wedding dresses, I think of sheer detail. My friend Evangeline Molly did a beautiful series honoring the different dark muses and different makeup that she would see each of the dark muse wearing. And I think the haunted doll, even though that's not the muse I actually naturally go for, she nailed it. She nailed it. And I actually think Evangeline definitely has some romantic in her essence blend. And the haunted doll makeup just looked so beautiful on her. So I think that's also another great inspiration when it comes to haunted doll and romantic essence. Now let's talk about the dark fairy. Now when it comes to fairy as a dark muse, this was essentially my answer to what would a dark muse look like that is super colorful but is still dark, unsettling, alternative, but is colorful. Vivienne Westwood-esque, someone with romantic essence that has given off fairy vibes, is Shannon Sossamon. She was very prevalent in the 90s. She's still an actress till this day and has been featured in different horror films. So I definitely think she has dipped her toes in some darker styles. And when it comes to fairy though, I think of her style in A Knight's Tale. She definitely has this very spunky type of hairstyle and these colorful garments that are romantic and also a bit fairy-like and fae-like. A Knight's Tale is a play on a medieval story, so it has a mix of these traditional elements that you would see of the olden times, but also they mix in some modern music. So A Knight's Tale is just a great inspiration in terms of an art form. I also definitely think Shannon Sossamon has romantic essence. I also think of Alexa Demi when it comes to romantic essence, and even though not many people think of her right away when it comes to dark aesthetics, she has definitely dipped her toes in some darker styles. She even was, I can't remember if she was featured in this book or she created this book, but she has this fairy tale book where she is modeling these different dark aesthetics and it's so beautiful. When it comes to the romantic fairy at its core, remember it is saturated colors, it is unexpected patterns and details. It is mix and match, and it is cheeky, it is devious, just as a fairy would. Now, why does it work with the romantics? A dark fairy feel can be achieved in many ways, and if you have romantic features, you can incorporate fairy, whether it's in color or patterns. This is a huge emphasis on having fun in a dark way, or like a twisted fairy tale. So play with color and pattern, experimental details. And I also think of PC garments when it comes to fairy. So picture this dress or skirt that Alexa Demi has in this bottom left. I also think playing around with color and experimental techniques when it comes to makeup. Also, Liv Tyler is known to have romantic essence. And in the 90s, in the early 2000s as well, she actually has played around with different styles I would actually deem as dark fairy, whether it is this beautiful purple dress that has boning details or these striped tights that are very Alice in Wonderland-esque. And you can adorn yourself with petals and poison jewelry, which definitely leans itself into haunted doll and fairy styles. And like I mentioned, Blackwood Castle, as we have featured here in this striped dress, definitely caters to a broad spectrum of dark aesthetics, but I think this striped dress, very Beetlejuice-esque, is what I would envision for the fairy dark muse to wear. This video is dedicated to my Patreon, Iris, who actually requested this. She asked if I could perhaps one day make a Kitchener Essence video talking about the dark muses, and if you have different essences, how does that coincide with the dark muses? Now, originally, I actually didn't want to do this video because I wanted these systems to be completely separate. I have talked about the Kitchener Essence system inspired me, but the way the Kitchener Essence system inspired me is this idea of organization and archetype system of sorts, but that's about it. The dark muses are styles that you can aim for irregardless of your body type, what your face looks like, whether you identify more with feminine or masculine styles. The dark muses is meant to be a free-form self-expression that essentially helps you get to know your dark aesthetic within your own personal style. And most of all, I emphasize, have fun with it and don't take it so seriously. I feel like the most beautiful ensembles when it comes to style is when you take yourself a little less seriously. And even though I made this dark muse system, I don't want it to be this rigid rules or it has to be this way. When it comes to celebrity culture or movies or even music, we don't know these people and they can disappoint us. But if you're taking inspiration from the idea of a vampire or the idea of a witch, that is a bit more fluid and you can have a bit more creative freedom with that as well. I hope you enjoyed this video and let me know if you want this to be a series because I definitely see it in many different ways. And until next time, bye.